Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I'm from the internet. Today we are going to be talking about Ted Cruz. Now, yes, Ted Cruz has had a very busy week. He avoided any knowledge of the impending fucking weather and power disaster that was going to hit his state. Then he pivoted, blamed it all on green energy. Then he begged the federal government for help rather than pulling himself up by his bootstraps. And then he took his whole family, hopped into the car, and he left to go to Cancun while everybody else sat around freezing and dying in Texas. I'm pretty sure most of you know this story by now. So why am I going to discuss it? Well, for two reasons. Number one, Ted Cruz is a truly contemptible excuse for a human being. And anytime you can drag him for a good reason, you should. He deserves it. However, he's kind of a burly dude, and I got a bad back, so I'm not going to be able to drag him all that far. So the other thing that I want to talk about that's probably infinitely more important than Ted Cruz is solidarity. It's something I've touched on in a number of videos, and this is a perfect example of solidarity in action. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Ted Cruz's Cancun trip. Family texts detail his political blunder. The Texas senator faced fierce blowback for fleeing his state as a disaster unfolded. Text messages sent by his wife revealed a hastily planned trip away from their freezing family home. Text messages sent from Ms. Cruz to friends and Houston neighbors on Wednesday revealed a hastily planned trip. Their house was freezing, as Ms. Cruz put it, and she proposed a getaway until Sunday. Ms. Cruz invited others to join them at the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun, where they had stayed many times, noting the room price this week, $309 per night, and its good security. As the cruises were away, millions of Texans were still without electricity. Many had no running water, and the icy air that swept into the state was so severe that the Federal Emergency Management Agency had been activated to send supplies, including generators. Some searched neighborhoods for discarded fallen trees to burn for warmth. Why? Because most people can't afford to just, pick up in the middle of a pandemic and a fucking weather emergency and just jet off to Cancun. Ted, however, could and did. While the city of Houston was gripped by the freezing weather on Wednesday, a member of Mr. Cruz's staff contacted personnel with the Houston Police Department at George Bush International Airport ahead of his flight requesting assistance upon arrival. And the final thing of note from this story here, in his statements, Mr. Cruz noted that the private school his daughters attend in Houston was closed this week, but some other parents at the school were incensed when they heard about his international trip because of the pandemic and school policies that have discouraged such travel abroad. Now, while that might seem like three somewhat random pieces of copy to pull out of a very long article detailing what Ted Cruz did all week as he abandoned everybody in Texas, what they do actually is they paint a tableau. And it is the tableau of solidarity, which I have been discussing with you for a while now, whether you know it or not. When disaster struck, Ted Cruz's first response was to take care of his family. His second response was to reach out to his community and his friends. Then, and only then, did he flee and leave everybody else behind. Why? Because Ted understands solidarity is a verb. Next up, Ted Cruz lands at the airport and promptly gets a camera and a microphone stuck in front of his face. Thankfully, he was prepared, you can tell, because he's wearing his I Love Texas mask. Again, this might seem somewhat innocuous, but let's hear what Ted had to say for himself.
Texas is going through horrific storms, and millions of Texans have lost power and lost heat and have been hurting. And our family was among them. We had no heat and no power. And yesterday, my daughters asked if they could take a trip with some friends, and Heidi and I agreed, so I flew down with them last night, dropped them off here, and now I'm headed back to Texas and back to continuing to work to try to get the power on. What's happening in Texas is unacceptable, and a lot of Texans are hurting.
Now, I think we can all agree that this is A, a shit excuse, and B, contemptible to use your child and to hold them up to deflect bullets. That's what we're seeing here. But the greater message that Ted is trying to market and sell, especially to his constituency at home, is, hey, I have a family. My family was my first priority, which was not a lie because it was. And at the end of the day, he chose being a good father in a time of great stress and anxiety. And hey, can't all you people at home understand what it's like to be a father during crazy times and just wanting to take your family and make everything all better? Solidarity is a verb. Next up, I'm going to reinforce my claim that Ted Cruz is indeed a contemptible human being, just in case anybody is going to take offense with that statement. Ted Cruz abandons millions of freezing Texans and his poodle, Snowflake. After jaunting off to Cancun with his family Wednesday night, Senator Ted Cruz explained he was merely escorting his teenage daughters on a vacation trip with their friends. In an apparent bid for sympathy, he noted that, like millions of other Texans, our family lost heat and water. Cynics immediately cast doubt on this claim, so this afternoon I decided to check out the senator's power situation for myself. Supplied with Ted Cruz's address by a knowledgeable friend, I drove the 15 minutes from my Houston apartment to the uber-rich River Oaks neighborhood where Cruz lives. From the street, Cruz's mansion looked dark and uninhabited. A neighbor informed me the block had indeed lost power before finally getting it back late Wednesday night. A glance at the lanterns flanking the doorways of other homes on the block confirmed this. The senator's story appeared to check out. But then I heard barking and I noticed a small white dog looking out the bottom right pane of glass in the senator's front door. Had Ted Cruz left his dog behind? Yeah. Ted Cruz left Snowflake behind. And right now you're asking yourself, hey James, where's that solidarity you were talking about before? Well, I'm going to take an educated guess here that they do actually at least like their dog. They booked this trip last minute, and it was explained to them when they tried to put a dog onto the plane that it's international travel and that they would have to bring some kind of record of all the dog's up-to-date immunizations that are required by the country that they are flying into, and they probably couldn't grab those on a moment's notice, or perhaps even aren't up to date on the vaccinations. And when push came to shove, they left the dog behind. Now, to be fair, we've already discussed how Ted Cruz is a contemptible human being. Thus, the pet he does not view as a member of his family. I mean, it can't expand his family's legacy. It can't generate capital to earn more wealth. It's really just there for his daughters to play with. It's kind of like a PS5 for rich girls who don't like video games. Now, make no mistake about it. Ted Cruz did abandon his dog, just like he abandoned millions of people in need, and he did it at the drop of a dime. But he displayed solidarity in action. He took care of his family, he took care of his friends, and he took care of people in his community that he trusted. He offered them a way out of the shitstorm as well. Why? Because even with more money than God and damn near unlimited power, Ted Cruz understands that in times of need, in times of trouble, you need people who are going to have your back. Solidarity is a verb. So when I tell you that you need to start looking to your left and to your right, finding out who are the people in your community, who are your neighbors, how is your family doing? I'm not joking. I'm not saying this is some sort of catchphrase or sign off. I'm telling you that people who have a shit ton more money than you and a shit ton more power than you, they have already organized. They already know who has their back. They already know who they can congregate with when the shit hits the fan and push comes to shove. You, whoever you are watching this, you don't have as much money as Ted Cruz. You do not have as much power as Ted Cruz. However, you have the ability to organize. You have the ability to take care of each other. Solidarity is a verb. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet and I am out. Peace.